Unit 8. Relative clauses, participles, adverb collocations, the world around. Test your grammar. Complete the sentences with one of the relative pronouns. A relative pronoun is one which is used to refer to a noun mentioned previously. So we have these relative pronouns: who, which, where, that, what, when, and whose. Here are the meaning of some of them. Who refers to a person. You can say which refers to an animal or a thing. What refers to a non-living thing, and whose refers to what we say that it has a possessive meaning, and so on. So the first sentence: the man who you met was my brother. Who you met was my brother. My other brother who lives in London is a teacher. Who? It refers to brother. Who lives in London is a teacher. He suddenly decided to give up teaching, which came as a bit of a shock. Number 3 here is which came as a bit of a shock. He says that what he wants to do is move to Australia. What he wants to do is move to Australia. His wife, whose parents, and whose for possessive meaning, whose parents live in Melbourne, is delighted. Number 6, they don't know exactly where or when they are going. Where or when they are going. Their flat, which they bought only last year, is up for sale. Which they bought only last year is up for sale. The flat which I want to buy is in Acacia Avenue. So the flat which I want to buy is in Acacia Avenue. So number 8 is which. So here is an introduction about these relative pronouns. We have relative clauses. Relative clauses are like adjectives. So the relative clauses they are like adjectives. هي مثل الصفات. What do? They give more information about nouns. So the relative clauses give more information about nouns, and they are like adjectives. For example, we have a German neighbor who comes from Munich. Here is the relative clause. It started with a relative pronoun. So here is the relative clause. It gives more information about the noun. Here is neighbor. The neighbor is the noun. So they are like adjectives, and they give more information about nouns. Read the sentences aloud, paying attention to the punctuation. Underline the relative clauses. So here, I met a man who's a pilot. Here is the relative clause. Who is a pilot? My friend Adam, who lives in London, is a pilot. Here, who lives in London is the relative clause because it began with a relative pronoun, and it gave more information about the noun. The house which you walked past is my aunt's. Here, which you walked past is my aunt's. Here, which you walked, it is the relative clause. And my aunt's house, which I don't like, is very modern. Here is which I don't like is the relative clause. In each pair of sentences, which relative clause is. So we have two relative clauses: a defining relative clause and a non-defining relative clause. What is a defining relative clause? It tells us exactly who or what is being talked about. We call this a defining relative clause. It exactly tells us who or what is being talked about. For example, the first one, I met a man who's a pilot. Here is a a defining relative clause. It is a defining relative clause because it told us who we are talking about. And a non-defining relative clause gives us an extra piece of information. It is non-essential to the sentence. هي مو أساسية مو ضرورية مو أساسية, not essential in the sentence, but it gives us extra information. So we call it a non-defining relative clause. As an example, my aunt's house, which I don't like, is very modern. تلاحظون إذا نشيل هاي الجملة it is non-essential مو أساسية. إذا نشيل which I don't like, the sentence is correct, so it becomes my aunt's house is very modern. إذا non-defining relative clause gives extra information, but it is non-essential to the sentence. Introduction here, the grammar reference of the relative clause. It is important to understand the difference between two kinds of relative clauses. As I mentioned before, a defining relative اللي هي مختصرها DR clause qualifying a noun. It refers to the noun and tells us exactly which person or thing is being referred to, as I said before. For example, she likes people on its own doesn't mean, she likes people who are good fun to be with her. She likes, that is an example. She likes people who are good fun to be with her. It refers to the noun. This relative clause refers to the noun people. She likes people who are good fun to be with her. هاي بالبداية على defining relative clause. She likes people on its own. يعني إذا فقط ذكرنا she likes people بدون التكملة doesn't mean very much. يعني شنو معناها من somebody says she likes people, it doesn't have a meaning. We need to know which people she likes. So we have here this relative clause who are good fun to be with her. يعني لازم we have to complete this sentence. She likes people who are good fun to be with her, because she likes people on its own, it doesn't have meaning. So we need to know who people she likes. So she likes the people who are good fun to be with her. A non-defining relative اللي هي NDR المختصر clause adds secondary information to a sentence. So the non-defining relative clause adds secondary information, extra information, but the information is non-essential. يعني مو أساسية. المعلومات اللي نضيفها it is non-essential. Almost as an afterthought. كأنما يعني اجتنا فكرة بالنهاية an afterthought. فكرنا فد موضوع فكرنا بيه بعدين وضفناه على الجملة. For example, my friend Andrew, who is Scottish, plays the bagpipes. So my friend Andrew, who is Scottish, plays the bagpipes here means المزمار. My friend Andrew is clearly defined. يعني Andrew, we know that it is his friend or my friend. It is clearly defined. We don't need to know which Andrew is being discussed. We do not need to know which Andrew is being discussed. The clause who is Scottish gives us extra information about him. يعني if we omit this clause, the sentence is correct. My friend Andrew plays the bagpipes. So here when we added who is Scottish, تلاحظون non-defining اكو commas. There are commas here. Who is Scottish? If we omit who is Scottish, the sentence is still has meaning and it is correct. So it is a non-defining here. Who is Scottish? Non-defining relative clause. So the information is non-essential. It is an extra information or a secondary information. Participles. A participle is a word formed from a verb. Usually this occurs by adding a suffix to the verb. نضيف we add a suffix to the verb. السفكس شنو يعني؟ هو المقطع اللي يأتي في نهاية الكلمة. But sometimes there are irregular formations. Participles come into two varieties, past and present. Participle has two forms, the past and present participle. They are of two of the 5 forms of principal parts that every verb has. Okay, for example, the verb, the present simple of the verb, the past simple, past participle, present participle, and the infinitive. الverb giggle يعني يقهقه، من الضحكة هي يعني يقهقه. Giggle. Present simple giggles, simple past giggled, past participle giggled, and the present participle giggling. We add the suffix ing, and here we add the suffix ed. Infinitive to giggle. Help, helps, helped, helped, and helping to help. Jump, jumps, jumped, jumped, jumping to jump. Here we are talking about these two forms, past participle and the present participle. Present participle. The present participle is always formed by adding the suffix to the ing. So the present participle, we add the suffix ing to the verb, to a verb. When used with an auxiliary verb like is, am, are, was, or were, the present participle forms a compound verb that describes an action that is in progress. So when we use the suffix plus ing اللي هي present participle with is, am, are, was, we form a compound verb. So the compound verb describes an action that is in progress. For example, she is babysitting tonight. That is the participle form, present participle. We added is babysitting here, babysitting. I am, we add the am, auxiliary verb here, am, singing, plus the verb plus ing, the suffix ing, so it is a compound verb. A song. You are sharing your toys very nicely. Here are, the auxiliary verb are, and the sharing, share, plus the suffix ing, so here it is the present participle and describes an action that is in progress. You are sharing your toys very nicely. Here, I'm singing a song, that is an action which is in progress. And also, she is babysitting tonight, it is an action in progress. The past participle. The past participle is often but not always formed by adding the suffix ed. It is formed by the suffix ed, verb plus the suffix ed. It is not always, often, that is, you must remember that this. It is often, not always, formed by adding the suffix ed to the verb. It can also be paired with an auxiliary verb like was and were. Not only the suffix ed to the verb, but it can also be paired with an auxiliary verb. Because it is past, we use was and were, has and had, to show that an action has been completed. For example, the cookies were baked fresh this morning. Were plus bake plus the ed, the suffix ed. So the action has been completed. She has burned dinner before. We used has plus verb plus the suffix ed. I have lived an interesting life. He has lied, has and lied to me too many times. So this action has been completed when we use the past participle. When present participles ing are used like adjectives or adverbs, they are active in meaning. You remember we said that the ing adjectives describes a situation, and the ed adjective describes what a person feels. You must remember this. So when present participles ing are used like adjectives or adverbs, here they are active in meaning. يعني تكون مبني للمعلوم, active in meaning, they are active. Modern art is interesting. So this is the present participle, but it is used like an adjective here. Pour boiling water onto the pasta here. Pour boiling water into the pasta here. It is used like an adjective. The present participle is used like an adjective. She sat in the corner crying. Here the present participle crying is used as an adjective. When past participles ed are used like adjectives or adverbs, they are passive in meaning. لكن الpast participles اللي هي وياها ed when they are used as adjectives or adverbs, they are passive in meaning. تكون مبني للمجهول, passive in meaning. So the present participles ing when they are used like adjectives or adverbs, they are active in meaning. But the past participle ed when they are used as adverbs and adjectives or adjectives, they are passive in meaning. For example, I'm interested in modern art. Look at that broken doll. He sat in his chair filled with horror at what he had just seen. Past participles after a noun define and identify in the same way as relative clauses. So here we have the first sentence. I met a woman riding a donkey. So here the participle here, ride plus the suffix ing after a noun, it came after a noun, after the noun woman, can define or identify the same way as a relative clause. Means I met a woman who was riding a donkey. So if there is a participle after a noun, it can identify the same way as a relative clause. As a relative clause, for example, this example, who was riding? I met a woman who was riding a donkey. So it identified the sentence the same as the relative clause. The second example, the car stolen in the night was later found abandoned. So the car stolen here, it is the same. The car stolen came after the noun car. It is a participle here. Stolen came after the noun car, so it is the same meaning as a relative clause. That was stolen. The car that was stolen in the night was later found, and so on. So if participles came after the noun, they define and identify the same way as a relative clause. So here, depressed or depressing, that is, as I mentioned, the ing expresses, the ing adjective form of the adjectives expresses a situation, refers to a situation or expresses a situation, and the ed adjectives refer to the feeling of a person. Which adjectives in B do you think go with the topics in A? So the first one is exam results. Exam results, disappointing or disappointed. حسب الجملة. مثلا the exam results are disappointing, and I have been disappointed of my exam results. So these two words come with number one, exam results, disappointing, disappointed. A holiday, relaxing, relaxed. A journey, exhausting, exhausted. A job, challenging, challenged. A job, challenging, challenged. A hard luck story, amusing or amused. A TV documentary, boring or bored. A social situation, embarrassing or embarrassed. Again, exam results, disappointing, disappointed. A holiday, relaxing, relaxed. A journey, exhausting, exhausted. A job, challenging, challenged. a hard luck story, amusing, amused, a TV documentary, boring and bored, a social situation, embarrassing or embarrassed. Adverb collocations. These adverb collocations, a collocation is two or more words that often go together. So the adverb collocations are, or a collocation. What is a collocation? Is two or more words that often go together. معناها انه كلمتين او اكثر يأتون مع بعضهم في معظم الأوقات. So, sorry. Which adjectives go with which of these adverbs and why? As you know, students, we have gradable adjectives and extreme adjectives. What are gradable adjectives? They are normal adjectives that might have levels of difference in them. يعني شو معناها levels of difference? For example, the adjective cold. You can say a bit cold, very cold, quite cold. فإذا هاي نسميها gradable adjective. And extreme adjectives, we cannot, or they are adjectives that are not gradable. These adjectives, which are the extreme adjectives, already mean extreme, extremely plus the adjective. And they cannot be graded with quite, very, and a bit, as I mentioned before, with the gradable adjective cold. For example, the extreme adjective exhausted. It means that you are extremely tired. You are very tired. So we cannot say we are very exhausted. We must say we are extremely exhausted, or we are totally, or we are completely, or we are absolutely exhausted. For example, we have the adjective huge. It is a gradable adjective. I can say very huge, but I cannot say very massive. لأنه huge, it is the adjective, the gradable adjective. But the adjective massive is the extreme adjective of huge. So we must say absolutely massive. We can say very huge, but absolutely massive. So we have these adjectives: good, bad, marvelous, huge, nice, wet, clever, and so on. I will tell you the gradable adjective with very and its extreme adjective, which is used with absolutely. Very good, but absolutely excellent, marvelous, fabulous, wonderful. إذا مثلا for example, we have the gradable adjective good. Its extreme adjective that we can use absolutely with is excellent, marvelous, fabulous, wonderful. Bad, you say very bad, but absolutely awful. You say very nice, but absolutely fantastic. You say very, for example, very wet, but absolutely soaking. You say very clever, but absolutely brilliant. You say very excited, absolutely thrilled. Very surprised, absolutely amazed. Very valuable, absolutely priceless. Valuable, you use with the gradable adjective valuable, very valuable, but absolutely priceless. very small, absolutely tiny, very silly, absolutely ridiculous, very funny, absolutely hilarious, very interesting, absolutely fascinating, very pleased, absolutely delighted or thrilled, very big, absolutely huge and enormous. You can say very, for example, beautiful, but absolutely gorgeous. يعني I have mentioned the adjectives, the gradable adjectives and its extreme adjectives. With gradable adjectives, الادجective العادية نستعمل ال very or a bit or quite، لكن هنا منطينا فقط ال very. And with its their extreme adjectives we use absolutely. The verb quiet, the adverb quiet has different meanings. I will read these sentences for you. I will put a stress here on one or either the adverb or the adjective. The film was quite interesting. You should go and see it. I put a stress on the adverb quiet. If the stress is on quiet, quiet has a less positive meaning. It means not very. إذا وضعت الستريس على quiet معناها يصير less positive meaning. It means not very إذا الستريس عليها. The intonation، تلاحظون intonation من اللي فضتها على quiet rises and falls when يقع intonation على interesting. Was quite interesting، انخفضت بالتون هنا. And if it isn't stressed on quiet، إذا ما أسوي الستريس على quiet، it has a more positive meaning. So the stress is on the adjective. It means that the adjective is true or more than it is expected. The intonation rise and falls on the adjective. For example, here I say the film was quite interesting. من سوى الستريس على quiet والintonation fall and rise، إذن it is less positive meaning. It means not very. لكن هنا the film was quite interesting. I put the stress on the adjective, so quite here is more positive meaning. So here the adjective means true, it is true and more than is expected. I'm quite tired after the last game. Shall we call it on today? Call it a day. So I put the stress on quiet and the fall and rise of the intonation is on the adjective. Here it has a less positive meaning. It means not very. I'm quite tired, but I'm up for another game if you are. So here the stress is on the adjective tired. So quite here, the adverb quite has a more positive meaning. The adjective is true and it is more than it is expected. We have here the signs all around. Look at the signs. Where could you borrow money to buy a flat? From these pictures, where can you borrow money to buy a flat? A building society. A building society. Where can you buy a hammer, a screwdriver and some glue? Here we have DIA. It is the abbreviation, especially in Britain, do it yourself. DIY, do it yourself. You can buy a hammer, a screwdriver and some glue. يعني أشياء ممكن تسويها أنت بنفسك، فتشتريها من محل اسمه DIY اللي هي do it yourself. Go to get fit. Go to get fit is health club. A health club. A health club. Get rid of your newspapers and bottles. recycling يعني إعادة تدوير get rid of your newspapers and bottles. Recycling يعني reusing things. Get an expensive bed for the night. Get an expensive bed for the night. B and B means bed and breakfast يعني bed مبيت وفطور. فإذا get an expensive bed for the night. B and B, bed and breakfast. It means bed and breakfast. Get help with legal problems. Get help with legal problems. Here we have the Citizens Advice and Bureau. Get help with legal problems. Citizen Advice and Bureau. Have your nails manicured. Have your nails manicured. Nails يعني أظافر. Manicured. Here avenue, hair and beauty. Hair and beauty. Replace some of the parts on your car. يعني مكان الأدوات الاحتياطية للسيارة. Replace some of the parts on your car. Here tire and exhaust center. Tire and exhaust center. Thank you.